Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Naruto and Sakura Had a Kid, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Sakura peered into the darkened building as the dust settled around her. She heard Shino take a few steps beside her. Ino and Tenten were trailing behind them. Sakura knew they were afraid of the conditions inside the building, but she had to know. She desperately looked for any sign of Naruto as her feet unconsciously carried her into the darkness. She could see forms huddled at the far end of the one-room building. How many are there? She whispered to Shino. It seems, he replied cautiously, that there are more than we anticipated. Sakura let her eyes wander on the hallowed faces of the villagers. Just how many people are cramped in this building? She inwardly seethed. She found the living quarters unacceptable, and she became even more angry as she thought of the neglect the sound ninjas showed the innocent villagers. This is absolutely horrendous. I am going to kill them. All of them. Shino watched silently as Sakura's fists clenched and unclenched. He could tell from her posture that the sight of the neglected villagers, many of whom were not yet adolescents, was upsetting the young kunoichi. They are monsters, Tenten hissed behind Shino. Sakura calmly walked to the nearest barricaded windows, loudly breaking the wooden and steel panels covering them. Light poured into the room, allowing her to better assess the situation. The sudden smell told her there were no restrooms granted to the hostages. Anger. All of these children, she growled, as Ino calmly grabbed for Sakura's hand. Sakura noticed a young child sitting with his knees drawn to his chest, his teeth chattering. She knelt down, putting her hand on his head. Are you all right, little one? She asked softly. She smiled, hoping to prevent frightening him further. Why yes. Auhh here to help. His eyes were a deep brown with hints of gold. They were the only thing that Sakura could truly discern from his grimy features. Sakura nodded, as she silently read the unnoticed chakra impulse she sent through his body. He was severely malnourished and dirty. A wound on his foot showed signs of a bacterial infection, possibly spreading to his blood. That would explain the fever, she thought. She gently removed her cloak, wrapping it around the young boy. Ino, could you please allow Katsuyu to heal the wound on his foot? Katsuyu-sama, could you remove any pathogens that are living in his bloodstream? That should decrease his fever. Yes, Sakura, my lady, Katsuyu's high-pitched voice spoke her affirmation. Ino gently placed the slug on the boy's leg as he watched, wide-eyed. He remained silent, except for the chattering of his teeth. Sakura continued scanning the room for signs of him. Her thoughts were interrupted by the young boy. Lady, are you an angel? He asked innocently. Sakura reached for his hand. No, I'm afraid not. I'm from the Leaf. We are here to help you. You are safe now. No one will hurt you anymore, I promise. His eyes streaked her green ones for some time, as if assessing her honesty. When he was satisfied, he smiled in return, the dirt cracking around his lips. Mother. The little girl tugged at her mother's arm. Mother, is that Naruto-kun's princess? The little girl pointed toward the newly made entrance to the building. Her mother squinted against the unfamiliar sunlight. She shook her head slightly. I'm not sure. I can't see. But, I wouldn't expect her to be here, my child. She leaned back against the wall, looking at the young shinobi who had escorted them through the forest. She felt a large pang of guilt at his current condition. Both her and her husband had been aware of the dangers, as they encountered much difficulty finding someone to protect them in their travels. The family had been overjoyed at his enthusiastic reply to their request. It was the 6th village in which they had taken refuge in 5 days' time. They knew that it was a long shot, but they attached more money to the help-wanted ad. She had voiced her concerns to her husband at the time, especially after they had set out. The young blonde man had happily chatted about his unborn child and lover. It was that same guilt that was now gnawing at her insides as she wiped the sweat from the Leaf Nin's brow. He had been injured while trying to protect them. And when the rogue ninjas threatened to kill her son, Naruto immediately surrendered. She felt a longing for her son, as both he and Naruto were poisoned by their captors, despite their uneventful surrender. She had wanted to S in place of her son, but Naruto's S was the only thing keeping her from sucking to her loss. Her husband was also on the verge of death, leaving her a widow with 2 children. But mother, that woman has pink hair and is with child. It's her, I know it. She came for him. The girl squealed as she broke free of her mother's grasp. The young child ran toward the newcomers as her mother tried to stand and retrieve her daughter, Lin. It was too late, her daughter disappeared into the blinding bright light. Sakura Haim. Sakura Haim. Sakura looked for the source of the voice calling her name. She was not accustomed to being addressed so formally, much less as royalty. She could see a young girl with dirty red curls bounding toward her. She tripped as she approached the pregnant Jonin, falling face first at Sakura's feet. Sakura knelt down to help the young girl to her feet. There were tears in the girl's eyes as she smiled through the pain. You came. Do I know you? The medic asked cautiously. This girl was also malnourished. She had a few cavities that concerned Sakura, but she would deal with those eventually. There were more pressing matters. You came for Naruto-kun. The girl hugged Sakura. He told us all about you. And the baby. Hearing Naruto's name sobered Sakura, she looked over the girl's shoulder. Is he here? She asked hurriedly as she lifted the girl off the ground and placed her on her own hip. He's with mother, the girl replied over Sakura's shoulder. She turned to face where Naruto was lying. That way. She pointed. Sakura weaved between the people, as the girl squirmed out of her arms. She pulled on Sakura's hand, leading her toward her mother, father, sibling, and Naruto. He's sick. He's very sick, mother says, the girl explained as if it were well known to all. Sakura's stomach sank as the fear gripped her. Lin, an older woman said as she rushed forward to pull the girl into a hug. Don't you ever run away like that again. The girl returned her mother's hug. Mother, it is her. It's Sakura Haim. She came for Naruto-kun. She really loves him, I can tell. Her mother stood, facing Sakura. Is it true? Are you Naruto's friend? Her eyes fell onto Sakura's swollen belly. You shouldn't be traveling in your condition, she whispered, her eyes still on the medic's stomach. She felt an emptiness at the thought of her son. I am, Sakura nodded, peering around the woman. Her eyes fell on Naruto's body. He was thin and pale, his eyes were closed. His face looked peaceful despite the bruises. Rage lapped at Sakura's insides. Naruto. She yelled, as she dropped to the ground near her lover. Her hand touched his face, it was cold to the touch. The woman knelt beside her. He's been this way for almost a week, she began. Are you the ones who hired him to escort your family? Sakura asked sharply. The woman knew that the young Jonin's blame was not unwarranted. We are, she bowed her head in shame as she explained herself, not a night has passed that I haven't regretted our decision. You are more than justified in your anger. So it was your son that we rescued in the forest, Sakura muttered, focusing on her chakra reading. Her hands glowed a soft yellow. The woman shook her head. No. My son has passed, she suddenly sobbed. I healed him myself, my lady, and I can assure you that he is alive and safe a few kilometers outside the village, she replied, a frown tugging at the corners of her lips. He's alive. My hero is alive. The mother smiled through her tears, pulling her daughter to her. He's going to be okay. Sakura nodded. Her reading was returning inconclusive. He had been poisoned, that much she could confirm, but his body's response was unlike what she had seen in previous cases. She heard Ino, Shino, and Tenten approach. Shino spoke, I have sent out a tracking beetle to lead Anbu to the village, as the Hokage requested. They will be here shortly to provide aid. He let his eyes fall on the withered shinobi. It was unlike Naruto to not greet them with a smile. Naruto, Sakura whispered, her hand stroking his face, wake up, please. A few tears rolled down her face as the despairing truth was confirmed to her comrades. Ino knelt beside her, pulling the antidote from her medical bag. She placed a few drops under Naruto's tongue. She reached up, removing the Minetacha Katsuyu from Shino's shoulder. Katsuyu-sama, could you give this antidote to all who need it? My chakra should be suitable for that task, she commanded, not flinching at the contact with the slimy invertebrate. Of course, Ino-sama. As you wish, the slug replied. She ingested the tiny bottle, and soon, more clones of the slug appeared as they diverged in different directions. Sakura, Ino began, worry evident on her porcelain face. She could tell that Naruto's condition was not ideal. He's been talking in his sleep, Lin quipped. He's been asking for you, Sakura Haim. Sakura softly stroked his cheek. I'm here, Naruto. I'm here, you fool, she whispered tenderly. Tenten and Shino silently left the couple and Ino, hoping to intercept Anbu before they barged into the building and alarmed the villagers. Both were angered at the devastation and poor living conditions of the hostages. I hope he will be alright, Tenten chewed her bottom lip. I do too. Why? I have always thought highly of Naruto. I always expected him to become the next Hokage, Shino replied, sadness in his voice. Tenten reached out and grabbed Shino's hand, squeezing it reassuringly. So did I, she whispered, looking out into the daylight. So did I. Hours had passed, and no matter how much chakra Sakura forced into Naruto's body, his condition refused to change. Ino eventually took over the exam for her exhausted teammate. She quickly read his brain waves, which indicated he was in a coma-like state. She was sure that Sakura was aware of this, though probably in denial. His brain didn't appear damaged, but more as if it had shut down to protect him from further damages. She could tell that the toxin had left his system, undoubtedly from the antidote. His condition, however, remained grave. Sakura had tried to increase his brain's activity by directly infusing chakra into his temples. Again, she was met with an unresponsive Naruto. She finally broke down in sobs, as the realization finally hit her, he may never awaken again. Had they been too late? What if they had arrived earlier? Could this have been avoided? Would he ever wake up? The questions remained unanswered as her tears relayed her pain. Sobs shook her body as she leaned over Naruto. Wake up, silly. Your child needs you. I need you, she whispered in his ear as her tears soaked his face. She lightly kissed his lips, her eyelashes brushing his cheeks. I love you, she breathed against his lips. A new flood of tears were released. Still, nothing. He protected us, and for that I am grateful, the woman said from next to Ino, but we should have never allowed him to take us north. His death is our fault. He's not S. Sakura hissed. She pushed Ino's hands away from his chest, and began to revise his bodily functions again. He's not going to S. Tear-stained cheeks were the only evidence of her fears. Ino looked up warningly at the older woman as she began to heal the husband's internal wounds. She nodded toward the comatose leaf ninja. Naruto is slay, but we need to take him back to Konoha for further evaluation. The woman nodded. Ino thought for a moment before speaking. I am curious, she began, hesitantly, as to how all of this happened. She nodded her head toward Naruto's body. The older woman looked from both the anxious lover to her blonde friend. I suppose we have time for me to tell you. She closed her eyes, sighing as she ran her fingers through her napping daughter's grimy red hair. We were hoping to get through this area to our home, she began. We were coming from a distant relative's wedding ceremony. Tell me more about Sakura Haim, Naruto-kun. Lin clapped. Her body weight swayed on his shoulders as she grabbed fistfuls of spiky blonde hair to balance herself. Is she beautiful? Lin. Her mother shot her a warning glance. What did I tell you about being nosy? It's alright, Naruto grinned. Yes, Lin, she is very pretty. I think she's the prettiest woman in all of Konoha. In all of the land, actually. How did you meet Sakura Haim? More giggles. Another warning stare from her mother. Naruto, the older woman, and Lin were walking ahead, while the other siblings and father were trailing behind. I met her a long time ago, when we were kids. She was on my team, he explained. Was it love at first sight? Lin blushed, covering her mouth with her pudgy hands. She grabbed more hair to keep her balance as Naruto toted her on his shoulders. It was for me, he nodded, blushing. But Sakura was interested in someone else. Boo. I bet he wasn't handsome, was he? The young redhead frowned. He was the most handsome boy ever. All the girls loved him, Naruto admitted. He was the other person on my team. What happened to him? Why did Sakura choose you? Lin asked, daringly. You are smart for such a young age, Naruto chided, as her mother cast him a knowing glance. Lin, Naruto does not have to answer such rude questions, her mother began. It's alright, Mom, I don't mind, he said, pushing Lin up higher on his shoulders. His name was Sasuke, he began. Suddenly he stopped all movement, his face turning stony. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Lin asked cautiously. She could feel his hesitation. Shush, I think I hear something, he said, as he began to remove Lin from his shoulders. He handed the young girl to her mother. He silently motioned the rest of the family members to catch up. His eyes suddenly changed, his pupils and eye color metamorphosed into something the mother had never seen before. There was almost something amphibian-like about it. He dropped down to the ground, placing his hand against the rough surface as if reading something. He suddenly stood upright. You have to run north, he hissed. There are ninjas in this forest, and they are heading this way. We were too noisy. I can take care of them. Mom, Dad, take your children and go, I'll catch up as soon as I am finished. The terrified family began to run. Naruto, Lin wailed as her mother and father whisked her away into the shrubbery. The older woman looked back over her shoulder to see the young leaf nin multiply into a few hundred. It was the last thing she had seen of him before they were captured. We were suddenly attacked by a swarm of bats, she murmured. Soon the men were upon us. They too my oldest son, hero from me. He tried to fight back, but they beat him, she recalled, a tear sliding down her cheek at her son's abuse and her helplessness. What happened after that? Ino softly asked. We were taken back to where Naruto was fighting. He had taken on more ninjas than one man should be able to handle, and with very little effort. I think they knew they were about to be defeated. Two men grabbed my son and threatened to kill him if Naruto didn't surrender. Naruto didn't even argue, he just gave up. His appearance was again what we were used to, and he allowed them to beat him without so much as a fight. They separated us, and when we were taken here, Naruto was thrown in here with us. My son was not returned. Naruto said they had poisoned both of them against their word. By that time, the poison had begun to take its toll, and he was too weak to even walk. Most of us were poisoned with drinking water that they rarely gave us. I didn't drink any of it, hoping to give more to my other daughter, not knowing it was poisoned. She motioned to her husband and daughter, who were now recuperating with the help of Sakura's antidote. He did want me to make sure that Sakura knew how much he cared for her, and how happy he was that she was carrying his child. Those were the last things he said to me before he fell asleep, she said softly. Sakura stroked Naruto's face. That sounds just like him. He would himself for anyone, regardless of whether he knew them or not. It was his nature. That's why I fell in love with him, she admitted. Her voice was filled with both pride and regret. The older woman thought for a few moments, before addressing her concerns. It was as if the poison worked more quickly on him than on anyone else. Is it possible he was given much more of it? The woman's tired eyes met Ino's ice blue ones. Ino quietly shrugged her shoulders. I can't tell, she said, squinting at Naruto's immobile body. Something just felt different about his situation. She couldn't place it, though. They silently watched Sakura devote herself to Naruto's healing as they waited. Anbu finally arrived and Lin squealed, clapping her hands in happiness. Mother. They have kitty masks. Sakura turned as a taller member approached with Tenten. She guessed it was Neji. How is he? Came the Hyuga's smooth voice. Sakura's eyes relayed her unspoken fears. The masked man nodded his understanding. Our orders are to return him to Konoha. Is that acceptable? Perhaps Tsunade knows of something we can do, Tenten suggested. Sakura nodded weakly, as Ino helped her rise. She was worried by how much chakra Sakura had utilized, and hoped the baby would not be affected. Sakura turned to the woman and her daughter. We are returning to Konoha. You are more than welcome to return with us. I'm sure Anbu can escort you the rest of the way home. If not, I will lead him to your son. Your husband and other daughter should be fine within a few hours. Their breathing has become more regular. You are very lucky to have your entire family safe with you. Her voice was filled with pain and more regret. The woman instinctively pulled the Jonin into a hug, as her daughter clung to Sakura's legs. I'll pray for him, I promise. Every waking moment I will pray for him. You two have done more for me than I can describe. I owe you my life. You saved my children. Thank you, Sakura, she whispered into the medic's hair. Sakura could only nod weakly. Her chakra was almost depleted, and she had no more tears left to cry. She had to be strong. For her child, for Naruto. Tenten and Neji supported the pink-haired Medis as she walked out of the building. Most of the villagers were revived, and were congregating in the welcomed sunlight. They were overjoyed at their release, and would show their thanks once the village had recovered from the ordeal. Loud applause broke out when Sakura exited the building as cheers rang out into the forest. The Leaf Nin and her slug magic would forever be remembered by the villagers. Ino watched the miraculous scene as the bittersweet irony of the situation stung her best friend. Something about Naruto's condition was slightly different from that of a normal comatose patient. She was used to spending time on such patients, learning to draw blood and start IVs in the hospital. It was like an art to be able to read brain waves of coma patients. From her readings of Naruto's brain, she could tell that he lacked the trademark decrease in activity of a coma. It was as if he was stuck in prolonged slow-wave sleep. She could depict the tiny spikes and peaks that set sleeping patterns apart from a true coma's brain waves. The blonde kunoichi contemplated Naruto's condition. Would it work? Can I do it? She silently considered. I will have to ask father when we return, he can tell me. He can use it most proficiently. She knew that it was risky to consider such a procedure, but she was confident that such a technique would give her a better idea of the underlying problem. She had a feeling that the demon inside of him was making his body react differently to the toxin than a normal human, but she didn't want to share her theory with Sakura. Not yet. No, she would speak to Inoiki and Tsunade to confirm it and decide what action to take. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.